One of the questions that was asked during the MBA class was about rates going up or down and how that affects your home price. So I'm going to show an example here about how interest rates going up can cause home prices to go down. All right, so let's pretend that we are going to buy a house, and the present value of that house is $500,000. Put a little comma there, ding ding. Okay, and let's say that the rate that we are going to pay on this loan is 3%. We're going to keep it for 30 years, and we are going to figure out what our payments are. So we can use the PMT function. Our rate is going to be 3% divided by 12 because we're going to pay monthly. The number of periods is going to be 30 times 12 because there's going to be 30 years times 12 payments. And then our present value is going to be 500,000, and I'm going to close the parentheses. That's going to give me a negative number. Oh, I forgot, we got to put a down payment. Let's do that. Okay, so our down payment is going to be 20%, which means that let's put this as price, and this is PV, 20%, which means that the PV will actually be 500,000 times 1 minus the 20%. So this is the amount of our loan. And let me change, instead of D4, it's going to be D6. Sorry. Okay, and I'm going to put a negative in front of this so that we know, like, it's not too weird. All right, so our payments are $1,600.86 per month for this $500,000 house that we put $400,000 down on. Okay, now let's assume that interest rates rise. So now instead of R at 3%, let's say R is 5%. So for a 30-year mortgage, you go from 3% to 5%. Now let's hold the payment fixed. Hold the payment fixed. Because for most people, what they're putting down, like, they'll have some 20% down payment, but really what they're trying to target is this monthly payment, and they are trying to figure out how much they can afford. All right, so with the same payment, the question is, how much of a mortgage can I afford? Okay, so from here, what we're going to do is use the PV equation. So we're going to have rate 5% divided by 12. Number of periods is going to be 30 times 12. The payment is going to be, dang it. The payment is going to be D15, and then we're going to close parentheses because we're not going to have a future value and we're not going to put annuity due. And let's put a negative here. Okay, so now we went from a present value of 400,000 to a present value of the mortgage that we're taking to 300,000. So let's assume that we put 20% down. So down payment is going to be this divided by 4. And the reason I got that is because 20% down means you put 80% down. So 1/4 of 80 is 20%. So this is the total house price. Okay, so what we end up with is our house went from 500,000 to 392,000, and this is like how much we can afford based on the same payment. Now notice that this isn't a perfect example here because, like, the 20% down is going to change depending on what kind of house we buy, and also, like, it's not one for one. So for instance, just because, like, at $1,600 I can't afford the same house payment doesn't mean that I can't come up with the money from somewhere else. So, like, the market won't necessarily shrink by over $100,000 when mortgage rates go up by 2%. If there's a lot of people moving in, it won't change what is happening in the market that much. But if there aren't as many people moving in, or if industries in that local area are affected by the increase in interest rates, you could conceivably see your house decline by this amount depending on what happens in the market. And again, this is not mathematical, but what I just want to show you is that a person who can afford a $500,000 house at 3% interest can only afford a $392,000 house at 5% interest. And again, the down payment is going to be different. So it's not quite apples to apples, but this is just an illustration. For the same payment at a higher interest rate, it makes a huge difference in how much house you can afford. I hope that is interesting and insightful and gives you some context.